Listen, midlife mavens and mamas, today's episode of Midlife by Design is going to knock your socks off. That expression makes me sound more like a boomer than Gen X, but whatever. Gala Darling is my guest for today's show, and she's closer than I to the millennial spectrum, but she's coming into midlife, and more importantly, she's the epitome of what it means to lean into your authenticity, or your weirdness, as she likes to refer to it. Gala is a 4/6 emotional manifestor who gives zero fucks about what other people think when it comes to forging her own path. That said, she's also so joyful, incredibly playful, and tapped into how this fierce individuality is serving the people who follow her. Gala has been revolutionizing the self-help space for close to 2 decades, teaching EFT tapping through her unique spiritual pop star lens and helping hundreds of thousands of people step onto a path of emotional healing, radical self-love, and expansive living. Gala is originally from New Zealand and is the host of Vortex Vision TV, and also the best-selling author of Radical Self-Love, A Guide to Loving Yourself and Living Your Dreams, and Magnetic Mindset, How to Make Love to the Universe and Manifest Anything. By the way, if you think I should have her back on to talk about reviving midlife in the bedroom, shoot me a DM. Gala has given a TED Talk, she's taught at NYU, she's been featured in every major publication that counts from Vogue to the New York Times, and she has worked with celebrity clients like Rainn Wilson and the original girl boss, Sophia Amoruso. Gala believes that pleasure is your birthright, that the process of becoming your future self should be a joyful one, and that feeling good is your job. I cannot wait for you to meet her. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Midlife by Design. Today we have with us Gala Darling, and I am over the moon to have her with us to share with you her unique genius. So welcome, Gala, and can you just quickly introduce yourself before we launch into our conversation?
Absolutely. I'm Gala Darling. I am originally from New Zealand, but I've lived in the States since 2008. And I write self-help books, but mostly my passion is using tapping, EFT tapping, to help primarily women transform their stories, their beliefs, so that they can actually get out there and do the things that really matter to them. I think that everyone has the ability to live a big, exceptional, and joyful life. And I just want to make it easier for people to do that.
Love it. Love it. Okay. So you are a 4/6 emotional manifestor, and your journey has been one of, it seems to me from the outside looking in, embracing your authenticity. And so I'm curious if you could tell us a bit about your journey.
Yeah, I think that I first learned about the importance of my authenticity. And I sort of hate the word authenticity because it's used so much. And I think it almost gets lost in the shuffle. Like we don't really know what it means. So for me, the word authenticity is kind of synonymous with the word weirdness. So I would say that I started to embrace my weirdness when I was in my early teens. I got really into the goth subculture, and I learned from that actually embracing the things that I was really excited about made me magnetic to the people around me. And I keep learning that over and over again. So, I learned that when I was a teenager, and then when I started my business when I was 23, I really was able to build on that weirdness. And instead of trying to fit in with what every other fashion blogger was doing, which is what it was at the time, I really felt like there was a space for women who wanted to play with their clothing and their style, feel good in their clothes, and not have that need to embrace trends or to fit in. And what I found was that by telling people how I felt and what I believed, I attracted a really big group of people who were just like me. And I think that's the coolest thing about our weirdness is it's actually not that weird. Like there are so many people who are just like you. And the more that you can be loud about that, then the faster and easier it is for them to find you. And I think that story has followed me my whole life with everything that I've done in terms of deciding that I was going to self publish my first book or deciding that I was going to create my own TV show. It's very much about what is it that turns me on? And also not expecting, maybe this is a manifestor thing, not expecting other people to get it and just deciding that if it turns me on, that's good enough. And if I follow that and I shine my full light on it, then the people that are meant to find it will find it. And that has just never steered me wrong. That is absolutely the guiding principle of my life.
I love that so much. And what I want to shine light on here is your specific bravery for doing that, even as a teenager. To be able to step into that weirdness is such a beautiful thing. And I think it seems to me that you've really owned the manifestor-ness of your energy, just that willingness to really step in and be like, whatever, if it's not for you, it's not for you. Like,
yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting to hear it called bravery because I don't even really see it as bravery. I see it as following what's fun. Like if I allow the pleasure to pull me, then I don't need to think about being brave. I can just let my excitement lead me.
Yeah. Yeah. Ooh, I love that. So, tapping and manifestation are two things that you are specifically known for, and Manifestation Queen is one of your tags on Instagram. So, I'm curious if you'd be willing to talk about your approach to manifestation and what do you do when it feels like your manifestations are just never going to come?
Right. Yeah. So my approach to manifestation is that it's about feeling good as much as you can, as often as you can. And I almost see the manifestation process as like you envision something that you want. And as soon as you envision that, it's like a gift from the universe. It drops down onto a conveyor belt. But the speed of the conveyor belt depends on how good you're feeling. So if you're feeling doubtful and fearful and unsure and overburdened, then the conveyor belt really slows down. But the more that you can be in a place where you're enjoying the moment, enjoying what is, and having that feeling of, I know this thing is going to come, but I'm going to enjoy myself no matter how long it takes, then the conveyor belt gets really fast. And I think that when it comes to manifesting, mostly people don't actually even really know what they want. There is, especially for women, I think we're very divorced from our desire. And so I teach a practice called the magical morning practice, which is a morning voice memo that you do. And it's really about talking about what you desire, like what would be fun for you. As I think so many of us are locked into what's on my to-do list. Okay, great. What does my husband need? Okay, cool. What do my kids need? Okay, great. Does the pet have to go to the vet? Like there's so much. And what we want and what we need is either at the bottom of the list or we don't even have time or space to really think about it. So creating something intentional in your day where you're actually thinking like, what do I want? Like, what would be fun for me? What would turn me on? What would be exciting? Really changes things. But I mean, manifesting and tapping work together so beautifully because our biggest stumbling block with manifesting is like, am I really going to get it? Am I going to know what to do with it when I get it? Am I going to be asked for favors if I make all this money? Like, how am I going to deal with that? And as long as we have these conflicting desires, like we want it, but we don't want it because what'll happen if we get it, then we're really pushing and pulling this thing that we want, and it never really gets any closer. So with tapping, we can look at those beliefs. We can look at, okay, what is not in alignment here? Like, what is this thing that I think that's actually going to keep this at a distance? And I can reprogram myself. I can let go of that belief. I can put in a new story. And when you have a different belief, then you act differently and then you get different results. So they're really like the perfect bedfellows. I love them together. I think they're perfect.
Yeah. So backing up a little bit, you've given us a bit about the why of tapping, and I'm curious for newbies who have never heard, like, what is tapping? Can you explain a little bit about what it is, why use it? And then I would love to hear some stories about how, how has it looked in your life? How have you used it to transform yourself?
Yeah, amazing. So tapping is a somatic practice, which means it uses the body. So it's not just that you go to therapy and you sit in a chair and you talk about things with somebody. It is about really releasing the stories, the emotions from your body. Because my belief is that our emotions and the stuff that we believe gets trapped in our body, and it kind of creates this like energetic traffic jam. So we're sort of in this loop where we're unable to move forward and we're finding it hard to like get to a different zone. We really think the same things over and over all the time. And, we think, I think it's like 80% of our thoughts are just unconscious loops. We're thinking the same thing all the time. So with tapping, what you're doing is you're getting real about what it is that you believe in this moment. And it's about accepting that you actually believe that. So maybe you believe, I'm too old to have this. That might be a belief that you have. You might be like, it's too late, nobody cares, and I'm too old to do this. I should have started 10 years ago and I didn't, so I should just quit. But I really believe that if you have a desire, it was given to you for a reason. And that desire was given to you so you could actualize it. And your job is just to like push away the obstacles so you can make it happen. So what you do with this belief is you actually accept it. So instead of saying like, oh no, I don't believe that, like that's silly, da, 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 you actually say, even though I believe this thing, I deeply and completely love and accept and forgive myself. And when you're in a place of loving and accepting and forgiving yourself, even though you have this like terrible flaw or you believe this awful thing, then you can actually change it. But if we're not accepting of how we actually feel and think, then we can't make any movement. And so basically what you're doing through tapping is you're saying these words out loud to yourself. You're talking through the issue and you're tapping on various points on your body. So, the start of the eyebrow and the temples. And as you're tapping on these points, you're really able to rewire the brain. There's all these studies about how tapping brings down cortisol response, and it really brings you out of that fight or flight state so you can actually start to see the forest for the trees. And instead of being locked into this fear or this pattern, you can start to see solutions or new ways of doing things. And it's like the world just opens up to you. It's really beautiful.
So a few things about that. You mentioned the different places, to tap, and those are meridian points,
Yes.
correct? That are,
Yeah.
okay, feeding into your brain. So as you're using this language, you're literally, like you said, reprogramming your subconscious to kind of get on board with your desires, right?
Yeah.
And you mentioned the cortisol response, and I just want to pull along that thread a little bit because cortisol is one of those, buzzwords, I guess you could say, in midlife, especially because women up to this point, we get to this phase in our midlife where we have been doing the things that everybody expects of us. And it's this phase where we look back and start to question, and our bodies are starting to share the results of shoving our desires down. And it comes out in various ways, right? And a lot of those ways get cased in the menopause language of like, oh, well, your cortisol is the problem. And so we need to take supplements, et cetera, et cetera. And while supplements can be super helpful, I think this is a wonderful practice to be able to support women in midlife who want to reset that and take care of themselves in a different way.
Absolutely. And the greatest thing about tapping is it's free. All you need is your hands. Like if you can't afford supplements, because I know supplements can get so expensive and doctor's visits and all these things. And it's not to say that you shouldn't do them, but adding somatic practices into your overall health and energetic care is just so good. And you really can't go wrong with it, And tapping was developed to help veterans who had PTSD. Like it's super powerful. So you might think like, oh, well, my problem's really big. I don't think that I can use tapping to release this or change it. I dare you to try it and just see what happens.
Yeah, I love that. I forgot about that too. So thank you for that reminder,
Yeah,
which I think just gives it even more credence,
absolutely.
You also mentioned your energetic traffic jam, and I wanted to just circle back to that phrase. I love it so much. And I think what is fascinating about you specifically is you only have two centers defined in your human design. That's it.
Yep.
And so you have all this openness, and just to reflect back to you that it's so beautiful that that you have awareness of these energetic traffic jams happening within your body, because there is so much that you're pulling in from other people.
Mm.
And this kind of relates to my next question about being an aligned manifestor. You are, to me, again, looking from the outside, realizing that you are human, but it seems to me that you are just such a great example of an aligned manifestor, because you have this kind of unapologetic vibe about you. You've got this willingness to own your uniqueness, and it seems to me a very clear kind of connection to universal intelligence in terms of bringing in a manifestor urge and then taking action on it. So
Yeah.
I'm just curious how you feel about that characterization, and what are your thoughts there?
Well, it's very flattering. And, I only found out about human design a couple of years ago. And when I found out that I was a manifester, I really felt that makes so much sense, because I've always felt like I'm a little bit out of step with most people. I love being around people, but I haven't always felt understood by them, or I haven't always felt like we're similar. And so the idea that I'm sort of supposed to lead the way or bring in new things and that people will kind of catch up has like that makes a lot of sense to me. And I think there are also some really challenging things about being a manifestor, right? Like those rest periods are so hard. And, this time last year, not this time, like a month ago last year, so 13 months ago, I was on a first date with my now fiance, and we were at a coffee shop, and I was saying to him, that I had this online membership for 4 years. It was really successful, and I had closed it down. And I knew that I needed to close it down, but I didn't know why really, and I didn't know what was next. And the emptiness from, like September to January was really scary, not knowing what was next, not knowing what to bring in. But then in January, I had a phone call with someone that really opened up a whole new project. And now we just have started releasing this TV show that we filmed, which was absolutely an amazing experience. And so being a manifestor is great, but it's so challenging sometimes, because you feel these calls to do things. And from past experience that you need to follow the call and listen, but you don't know what's next. And you do have to trust yourself a lot to take that journey consistently and regularly.
Yeah, that's back to that bravery. That is incredibly brave. And for a lot of the manifestors that I speak to, especially midlife women who are juggling family and job commitments or whatever, I think that they struggle with that, and it's
Yes.
really easy to push it aside, right? If
Oh,
they
yeah.
get an urge. So I'm curious, your authority is an emotional authority,
Mhm.
and I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about this example of letting go of that membership and how you were able to come to that decision, and trust yourself.
Well, it was something I'd been thinking about for quite some time. And I so I didn't immediately close it down. I'd been thinking about it for a couple of years. And instead of closing it down, I was like, okay, let's see if we can do this differently. Let's see if we can change the deliverables, the schedule, the topics, the da 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 da. And it just still felt very enclosed to me. It just felt too small. I felt like I was putting myself in a box. And the worst thing was I had created my own box, which was very frustrating. And so after trying to change it and make it feel good, I realized like this actually isn't going to feel good. And I decided that I needed to just clear a space for something new to come, But again, it was really scary because I didn't know what the next thing was going to be. And it did take several months for that to surface. And in fact, it wasn't even my idea. It was an idea of somebody else's. She's a generator, I think, which probably makes sense. So yeah, but interestingly, her idea was an idea that I'd had since I was a child, like something I'd wanted to do when I was like 5 years old, that she said, "Oh, you're ready to do this." And I went, "Oh, okay, great. Like, let's go. Amazing." So yeah, I think that was kind of how that fleshed out. But yeah, it was scary. And even in the lead up to releasing the episodes, there's still fear and anxiety. There's doubt. Does anyone care about this? Is this the right direction? Have I wasted all this money on doing this? Like, what am I doing? But, I think when I look back at the project, I think that it made me feel really good to do it. And I feel really proud of what we've made. And so those two things alone make it a success for me.
Yeah. So let's talk about the TV show since you mentioned it. Oh, okay. I'm so excited about it. So I am focused on helping midlife women look at this phase as one of reinvention. There are so many opportunities for pivots during this phase, and on the latest episode of Vortex Vision, you share some ideas about how to burn everything down, how to just start fresh, step into your future self specifically. So I'm curious about some of your favorite practices to do that. And tell us about the TV show.
Sure. So, the first thing in getting prepared to burn everything down is starting to look at like what's not working and taking a real inventory of, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't like this. And then asking yourself, okay, can I delegate this to someone else? Or can I make it fun? Or do I just need to get this off my plate completely? Is this something that's like time has come? Like, I never, ever want to do this again. Maybe you've been volunteering at the parent teacher conference and you're like, I am never doing this again. Like, great, burn it down. And you will feel so free and liberated when you do this. Mm-hmm. So I think the first thing is looking at like, here's what I don't want to do. Like, here's my not to do list. I'm just going to start filling this out. And then looking to see, okay, do I need support with these things? If I'm not going to do this, does my husband have to pick up the slack? Or do I need a housekeeper? Or like, how do we make this all happen? But then it's really about getting in touch with your desires, thinking about what you want, what turns you on, and starting to have some of those hard conversations. Like, you might have to sit down with your partner and say, I cannot listen to you snore ever again, and I need my own bedroom, and we're going to have to figure this out. And I'm teaching a class right now called Devoted, which is about making your relationship so much better and improving your intimate relationship. And the homework from the last class was have the conversation that you really need to have to move the relationship forward. Like, what do you really need to say to your partner? And I think as we get to this midlife point, there is so much stuff that is unexpressed that we really have to start getting off our chest. And whether you start journaling or you go to an acting class and you get it out on the stage, or you start taking singing lessons and you're like expressing it through your voice, whatever you have to do, start getting this unsaid stuff out of your body. I think that's so important.
I love that. Oh my goodness. And we talked earlier about how it can be challenging to get in touch with what you do want because you've been stuffing it down for so long. And I love that a lot of your focus recently has been on think about the things that you did when you were a kid, right? And so I'm curious how that has come to pass in your life.
Wow. I mean, I think like the older I get and the more discerning I become about the projects I take on. I mean, as a manifestor, I have about 300 ideas a day that I'm always excited about. And I'm like so excited about. But again, being an emotional manifestor, it's like the things that after a week I'm still excited about. Those are the things that I should act on. And when I really look at those things, they all have a tie back to something I did as a child. And the path is so clear. And I think that for so many other people, that is so clear as well. I think there's really a seed in what you loved as a child that was put inside of you for a reason. And if you can tend to that, you will be amazed by what happens. And sometimes it's not exactly like, I want to be an astronaut, like, okay, I'm going to go sign up for the NASA space program. But maybe there is something related to that that could really open up your world. And so just play with that and don't allow the world with all its expectations and its rules and its pressures to kill that childlike piece of you, because it is one of your most precious parts. And I think that's really important. And going back to the show, when I was a kid, I would always walk around with a big video camera on my hand. They were so heavy in the 80s. And you needed like 2 arms to hold it. And I would be filming things and doing skits and all of this stuff. And Vortex Vision is really like the grown-up gala version of what I was making when I was 5, which is, a feel-good talk show. It's a spiritual variety show with the intention to make you feel really good when you watch it and give you some actionable things that will really change things for you. Like, in episode 1, there's an amazing poetry exercise with my friend Chelsea Diane called Spoiler Alert, where this poem, you literally write down the things that are going to happen in your life that you feel elated about. And it is a beautiful practice. It's such a special, special exercise that everyone watching or listening to this should go and do for sure. But I also have to say that the 6th episode of the series is about getting hotter as you get older. That is the entire focus of the episode. It's so great. And it's our last episode, so we're really going out with a bang. So I think you and your people will love that. I'm very proud of it.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Yeah, I loved the spoiler alert exercise in particular because I used to teach writing, and I think that poetry especially is a really powerful tool because it gives you a container, right? As opposed to kind of journaling can be a lot freer to kind of word vomit, but then when you get a little bit more specific and start really pruning, it can be really powerful.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
So I define midlife as anywhere between mid-30s to mid to late 50s-ish. And I know you're sort of on the earlier end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
But you've still had some incredible life experiences and have redefined yourself over and over again. And I want to just look at your identity center here for this question because it is completely open, meaning that you have, no gates there that are defined, and you can amplify other people's identities, which allows you to be a chameleon and, be lots of different people depending on whatever situation you're in. And so I'm just curious about the through lines that you've experienced, and despite the openness, or maybe because of the openness, what wisdom you've developed there about being your true, unique self while balancing other people's influences around you.
Yeah, that's such a good question. I think that the openness is a total benefit to me. And I've always been really inspired by pop stars who constantly reinvent themselves, David Bowie, Madonna. And I think that we all have the ability to become different people at different stages. And I actually think that in order to thrive throughout your life, you do need to embrace the power of reinvention. And maybe that means you go to the hairdresser and you completely change your haircut and you shock and horrify everybody at home. Or maybe it means that you quit your job, or you start your own business, or you decide to go to Turkey and start a rug company. Like, I don't know. But I think that the ability to change is so important. And I think the two things that really keep us young are the ability to hold on to our dreams and continue to follow them, and the ability to change and to evolve and to be different and keep your brain as plastic as possible. So I love the idea of reinvention and molding and shaping identity to fit where you are, because if you have big dreams, the things that you used to believe and the ways that you used to be are not going to get you to that next level. What worked then was great, but it's not going to work anymore. So we have to be able to evolve and shift and say, okay, if I want to be this future version of myself, how does she dress? How does she speak? Does she wake up at 5 a.m. or does she sleep until 10 o'clock? Like, what does that look like? And then really starting to follow those visions for yourself. And it's amazing what we can create in our own lives. And you're the only person creating your own life. So even though your partner, your children, your family all think they have an idea about who you are, none of them own you. Only you own you, and you get to do what you want. And I think we forget that. We really forget that it's on us and it's up to us, and we get to have and be and do whatever we want.
So true. And you relatively recently shared some stories and some reels on Instagram modeling this. I think you're talking about stepping into that future version of yourself and being very specific about showing, this is what my future self is going to wear. This is how she loves to feel when she gets dressed in the morning, et cetera, et cetera. And just coming back to your human design again, of course, with the 4-6 profile, that 6 part of your role model, is just shining through and benefits the collective in such a deep way. So thank you for doing that. Okay, well, thank you for spending time with me today and with the midlife women listening to our pod. And I would love to hear more about what's cooking, what's coming next, and where can we find you?
Yes. Well, we just launched a new app. Actually, we launched it on my birthday, which is called Vortex by Gala Darling. It's in the App Store and the Google Play Store. It's completely free, and it's full of tapping and manifesting challenges. And the focus for October is abundance. So it's about becoming a human cash register. It's going to be amazing. So you should all download that and have a good time in there. And then Vortex Vision is on YouTube, and we have new episodes every Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific. And it's a fucking blast, if I'm allowed to say that. And we're having a great time with that. So those 2 things. And then I'm on Instagram, just at Gala Darling. And it's a very pink, colorful, joyful little world over there.
Yes, it is. Oh my gosh. Joyful. And I would never tell a manifestor that she can't say fuck. So So thank you so much. I will drop all of those links in the show notes, and it has been such a pleasure. Please go follow Gala. She has some amazing resources if you are looking to pivot or make any sort of reinvention of yourself in midlife. So good. I loved this conversation with Gala Darling, and I hope you did too. If you loved this episode, let me know. Send me a DM. Share it with your bestie. Rate and review it on Apple Podcasts. That would be such an incredible way to help me spread the word and for us to serve more women in midlife. And I would love to hear from you if you try tapping or if you try any of the exercises that Gala talked about. Just let me know how it helps you navigate this midlife phase. And remember that I am sending you strength to let go. Maybe you use tapping to help you. Joy to fill your days and the clarity to be who you came here to be.